That was pretty cool.
All right, thank you.
Okay, here we go. Michelle and I and our two friends Tom and Carl are heading out to do the Ohio to Erie Trail. 7 days through Ohio. We are excited. Let's get to it. The Ohio to Erie Trail is a 326-mile bike route that is composed of 24 local multi-use trails that span the state of Ohio from the Ohio River in Cincinatti to the south to Cleveland on Lake Erie in the north. The trail is mostly converted rail lines and canal towpath trails with less than 50 miles of low-traffic roads. Joining Michelle and I on this trip are our good friends Carl and Tom, with whom we've shared many other adventures. So on a Sunday in late June, we drove from Buffalo to Cleveland, parked at the Cleveland airport, rented a full-size minivan, and loaded up the bikes for the 4-hour drive to Cincinnati, where Carl and Tom left Michelle and I with all the bikes and gear at Smale Riverside Park. Then while Tom and Carl dropped off the van at the Cincinnati airport and took an Uber back to the park, Michelle and I got all the bikes ready, including fixing Michelle's tube that found an unusually large thorn. We took some pictures and took in the beautiful park that the city of Cincinnati has built there. But once we were all reunited, we set off following the river to look for what we were told was the official start of the Ohio to Erie Trail, the paddle wheel. We then found a place to dip our tires in the river and continued on our way. The first few miles are multi-use trail along the river with a lot of sculptures and other things to see, but not long outside of the city the trail starts to vary between trail and road riding. The Ohio to Erie Trail follows Bike Route 1 signs the entire way, so if you pay attention, it's difficult to get lost. After Lumpkin Field, the trail turns out of the Ohio River Valley and starts to wind its way up the Little Miami River Valley, eventually linking up to the Little Miami Scenic River Trail, which took us to our first night stop in Milford. So I thought I'd take a moment to talk about why we shuttled ourselves in a rental car instead of paying a shuttle company separately. We did pursue that option, and we got a quote for 4 of us to be shuttled from Cleveland to Cincinnati for $650. Put that in perspective, in 2017 I paid $700 for 2 shuttles for 24 people on the Gap. Michelle and I paid $325 to be shuttled from one end to the other, the Cowboy Trail. So $650 is kind of a bitter pill to swallow. So by us doing what we did with the rental car and some Ubers on both ends, we spent about $350, or almost half of what the quote was for us on a shuttle. So do what you will, but you can save some serious cash if you get the same kind of quote like we did. The next morning, we headed north on the Little Miami Scenic Trail from the Milford Trailhead, serenaded by the birds and Tom's Tito Puente collection. This trail is completely paved, and on this beautiful Monday morning was very busy and got busier as we approached the village of Loveland. Loveland was hopping with kayakers and bikers alike, but we decided to continue on to Morrow in search of a lunch. In Morrow, we found Don Bigote's Mexican Cantina for a nice patio lunch and continued on the final few miles to Waynesville. In Waynesville, we stayed at the Creekside Motel, which was notable for the multiple air fresheners in every room and a light case of bedbugs. The next day was just another perfect day in a week of perfect weather as we started out towards the village of London. Along the way, there were many places to stop and take a rest, and we made the best of them. We eventually arrived in the town of Xenia for a refresh of our water supply, and to give Michelle a chance to cool off in the park's mini water park. Outside of Xenia, the trail was straight, flat, and empty. We had the entire trail to ourselves, and it had been freshly paved to boot. On the topic of trail conditions, we had nothing but good things to say about trail conditions on the whole. This may have been a result of being a collection of trails all maintained by different counties and municipalities, as we could count the number of bad sections on one hand. But even a rough trail is better than dealing with vehicles on the roads. There were a few sections of road riding where the road shoulder was a faint gravelly in memory, but most of these sections were low traffic and or low speed. The surface through the Cuyahoga Valley National Park section is crushed limestone but very well maintained. In the end, we experienced multiple surfaces and different environments almost every day, and that broke all the monotony that can sometimes really wear you down on the long rides. After Xenia, we had a nice shaded and creekside lunch at Colonial Pizza in Cedarville. Then on to another rail trail in South Charleston, where we met Ben, who had a flat tire, no tools, and was quite far from his car. After we patched him up, we rode with him back to his car near our stop for the night, which was London. After London, the trail traffic started to pick up as we approached Battelle Darby Creek Park, where after grabbing some shade and a snack, we started our push to the capital of Ohio, Columbus. The trails around Columbus are well maintained, well marked, and fairly scenic even while being in an urban area. Once in Columbus, we took a break and grabbed some lunch at the much recommended North Market, where we found lots of friendly people asking about our bikes and where we were headed, and mostly all were surprised that anyone would bike from Cincinnati to Cleveland. Getting through Columbus is no better or worse than any other urban section of this trail. You have to pay attention to the signage, but if there are any closures, Google Maps or a friendly pedestrian will get you back on track. Once you are along Route 670, it is an easy shot out of the city and onto Alum Creek Trail. After a lot of scorching sun in the city, Alum Creek is a well-shaded welcome change. The trail crisscrosses Alum Creek all the way to our destination for the night, Westerville. On the topic of trail accommodations, there are a few more challenges to overcome on this trail than your average rail trail. Since the Ohio to Erie Trail is not one big trail but a collection of smaller regional trails, there are not a lot of accommodations built along the trail. Most hotels that we stayed at were a few miles off trail, with many being around major interstate exits which had a lot more traffic to contend with, along with more hills. One notable hill had us cooking our brakes with a 10% downhill for a mile. Campsites seem to have more options closer to the trail in some sections of the trail, but slim to none in other sections. Our ride the following day had us using the Heart of Ohio Trail that starts in Westerville, winds its way through a few quaint towns to the geographic center of the trail in Centerburg. It was in Centerburg that we got some lunch and took an extended break in the town park, along with exploring and taking in our surroundings. After that, it is not far outside of Centerburg that you reach the highest point of the trail. Our destination for the day was Mount Vernon, and the ride into town was peaceful and serene. Just a bit outside of town, we came across the Raston Observation Tower, which is an old factory chimney from a PPG glass plant that has been converted into an observation tower. 224 steps is all it takes to get to a great view of the area. In Mount Vernon, we had a trailside hotel, and after dinner got a chance to visit another Mount Vernon site, the Dog Fountain. The next morning dawned brightly as we headed out of Mount Vernon onto the Kokosing Gap Trail. Our destination for the day was Millersburg, with our first morning goal being the Bridge of Dreams, which for one of us almost turned into the Bridge of Nightmares. But you can't keep a Marine down, so while Carl gave himself and his bike a once-over, we enjoyed having a look-see around the Bridge of Dreams. The Bridge of Dreams is a 370-foot-long covered bridge built in the 1920s that is the second largest covered bridge in Ohio and the third largest in the country. This is also around where the trail starts to enter Amish and Mennonite communities, where the trail is shared with Amish buggies and their little horsey landmines. It is this part of the trail where the majority of the road riding starts, along with the hills. Most of these are rolling hills with short ascents and long enough descents to catch your breath and cool down. The first road section runs from Glenmont to Kilbuck, where we enjoyed some ice cream at the town store before continuing on our way to Millersburg. In Millersburg, we spent the night at the historic Hotel Millersburg, which was absolutely beautiful, and even the room to store our bikes was pretty cool. And the bell tolls. Bikers begin. Leaving Millersburg was the start of our longest day, which ended up just short of 80 miles, but was also the most scenic day for all of us. As we made our way off the trail and onto the roads, we started to wind our way through Mennonite and Amish communities and really started to appreciate this section of the trail. Yeah, I got passed by a buggy. Enjoying the view. All the signs. Thank you, Wayne County Fire and Rescue. Leaving out some water. Any chance we can get to rest these weary bones. The country charm quickly faded as we approached the town of Massillon, which because of a lot of construction around the trail was a hot mess to get through. Again, Google Maps was the primary tool we used to get through town despite some pretty poor detour signage. So after a late lunch in town, we finally found our way onto the Ohio and Erie towpath trail heading north to our destination of North Dayton. The last topic to cover is that of planning and rider resources. The Ohio and Erie Trail has a website that was our primary tool for planning. There are downloadable maps, campsite listings, detour information, and can answer almost every question you might have. I'll place a link in the description. The trail maps you can download or buy are fairly useful when it comes to where you can find food, water, and accommodations, but lack the detail required to get you through the urban areas, and that was where we needed the maps the most. As for food and water, you will never go hungry or thirsty. There are plenty of towns along the way. We always kept some snacks with us to keep feeding the machine and typically carried 2 to 3 liters of water, which was more than enough. Our accommodations near Dayton were probably the farthest from the trail, but after a big dinner and a good rest, we started our final day in the push to Lake Erie. It is not long before the towpath trail enters the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and on this beautiful Sunday morning it was a busy place, requiring us to walk our bikes in a few places. But the trail in this section is well shaded, very well maintained, and very scenic as it snakes along the Cuyahoga River and along the remnants of the canal locks. You know you're getting close to Cleveland when you start to see the Metro Park bridges that the trail uses. And not long after that, you start to enter the industrial areas. Eventually, these start to lead us to glimpses of Cleveland in the distance. When we got to Cleveland, the trail was again being detoured and the detour signage was non-existent. Again, Google Maps to the rescue, and we eventually started to see the lake. As we approached the lake, we all felt the combined emotions of euphoria and melancholy. We had accomplished so much, but now it was over. So we found a place to dip our tires in the lake, found the Cleveland Scripps sign, before Tom and I grabbed an Uber to the airport to pick up the car and head home. All in all, the 4 of us loved this ride. It was challenging, yet fun with a lot to see, and the people of Ohio are always friendly and helpful. Hope you get the chance to do this ride, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments.